Alright, hey guys, what's up? It's another Monday, and you know what that means? It's another murderous Monday. Now, hold on a second. Now, let's talk about... Now, on this channel, Murderous Mondays, I talk about serial killers, and I upload every Monday, hence the name. But in this video, the victims were fortunate enough to survive the ordeal, but would never be the same. And today's case is that of Ariel Castro. Who was he? What was his early life like? And why and how did he become so evil? I will answer that and more in this video as I take you down the perspective mind of a rapist. So it's not really a killer. Today's case and next week's case are going to be rape cases. But then I'm going to be doing the rest of murder cases after that. Next week's next week's case, he actually did murder someone, which I actually didn't even know. I actually just looked him up, but yeah. Now, if you guys do not want to hear basically about someone raping and torturing and kidnapping people for the next 11 years of their lives, and even impregnating one of them, I'd say click off this video and I'll see you in another one. So, let's get started, because this is a doozy of a case. Between 2002 and 2004, Ariel Castro abducted 3 girls. Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina DeJesus from the roads of Cleveland, Ohio, and later held them captive in his home at 2207 Seymour Avenue in the city's Tremont neighborhood. All 3 girls were imprisoned at Castro's home until 2013, when Berry successfully escaped with her 6-year-old daughter, to whom she had given birth while captive, and contacted the police. Police rescued Knight and DeJesus and arrested Castro hours later. Castro was charged with 4 counts of kidnapping. 4? I thought they were doing... Oh, yeah, because of the kid, too, yeah. And 3 counts of rape. He pled guilty to 937 criminal counts of rape, kidnapping, and aggravated murder as part of a plea bargain. Now, this guy actually is dead, but yeah. He was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 1,000 years in prison without the possibility of parole. So really, he'll probably get out in like 13. But yeah, he's obviously dead, so. 1 month into his sentence, until his life upon life sentence, Castro died by suicide by hanging himself with bedsheets in his prison cell. But let's get into this case. Ariel Castro's background. Ariel Castro, born July 10th, 1962, his demise, September 3rd, 2013, was born in Dewey, Yaco, Puerto Rico, the son of Pedro Castro and Lillian Rodriguez. His parents divorced when he was just a little child, and he moved into the contiguous United States with his mother and 3 biological siblings. The family first lived in Exton, Pennsylvania, before settling in Cleveland, Ohio, where Castro's father and several other family members were living. Castro had 9 siblings, both full and half, and graduated from Cleveland's Lincoln West High School in 1979. Castro met his girlfriend, Grimilda Figueroa, when his family moved into a house across the street from hers in the 1980s. Castro and Figueroa lived with both sets of their parents until they moved into their own home at where this took place at 2207 Seymour Avenue, located in the Cleveland's Tremont neighborhood in 1992. Their home was a 2-story 1,400 square foot or 130 meters 4-bedroom, 1-bathroom house with a 760 square foot, or 71 meters, unfinished basement built in the 1890s and remodeled in 1956. According to Figueroa's sister, Alida Caraballo, she said that all hell started breaking loose after the couple moved into their new home. Caraballo claimed that Castro beat Figueroa, breaking her nose, ribs, and arms, and causing a blood clot in her brain that resulted in an inoperable tumor. He also threw her down a flight of stairs, cracking her skull. In 1993, Castro was arrested for domestic violence but was not indicted by a grand jury. In 1996, Figueroa moved out of the house and secured custody of their 4 children. Police assisted in the move and detained Castro, but they did not press charges. Castro continued to threaten and attack Figueroa after she had left him. Figueroa filed charges in 2005 in Cuyahoga County Domestic Relations Court, which accused Castro of inflicting multiple severe injuries on her and of frequently abducting their daughters. The court granted her a temporary restraining order against Castro, but it was dismissed only a few months later. Figueroa died in 2012 due to complications from her brain tumor. Friends and relatives gathered on Denison Avenue on April 29, 2012 for a memorial service in her honor. Before his arrest at the age of 52, Castro worked as a bus driver. Wow, so we're on kids. For the Cleveland Metropolitan School District until he was fired in November 2012 for bad judgment, including making an illegal U-turn with infants and toddlers on his bus, but using his bus to go grocery shopping, leaving a child on the bus when he went for lunch at Wendy's, and leaving the bus unattended when he took a nap at home. He was earning $18.91 per hour when he was discharged. Wow, that's actually more than I make. And that was like 12 years ago. Yeah, that was 12 years ago. At the time of his arrest, Castro's home was in foreclosure after 3 years of unpaid real estate taxes. Now let's get into the victims. Michelle Knight, born April 23rd, 1981, and is still alive currently to today, disappeared on August 23rd, 2002, after leaving a cousin's house. She was 21 years old at the time. On the day of her disappearance, she was scheduled to appear in court for a child custody case involving her son Joey, who was in custody of the state. Following Knight's rescue, police acknowledged that limited resources had been spent on investigating her disappearance, in part because she was an adult. Authorities believed that she had run away voluntarily due to anger over losing custody of her son. According to the Cleveland Deputy Police Chief Ed Toomba, she was the focus of a very few tips. Some criticized her subsequent removal from the National Crime Information Center database 15 months after she disappeared, which made her largely unknown prior to her rescue. The Cleveland Division of Police, or the CDP, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, maintain that her inclusion or exclusion had no bearing on her rescue. Now, the next victim, Amanda Marie Berry, born April 22nd, 1986 that's still alive today. And all these people are alive. Well, except for Castro, obviously. He did. Yes, this was the one that he actually impregnated. Amanda Marie Berry. She disappeared on April 21st, 2003, the day before her 17th birthday. She was last heard from around 8 p.m. when she called her sister to tell her that she was getting a ride home from her job at a Burger King at the corner of Lorraine Avenue and W. and West 110th Street. I think that means West. W. dot. The FBI initially considered her a runaway, another runaway, until a week after her disappearance when an unidentified male used her cell phone to call her mother. And he said, and I quote, "I have Amanda. She's fine, and I will be coming home, in the next couple of days." Berry was featured in a 2004 segment of Fox's America's Most Wanted, re-aired in 2005 and 2006. In 2006, which linked her to Gina DeJesus, who by that point also had gone missing in Cleveland. Berry and DeJesus were profiled on the Oprah Winfrey Show and the Montel Williams Show, where self-proclaimed psychic Sylvia Brown told Berry's mother, Luana Miller, in November of 2004 that her daughter was dead and that she was in water. This pronouncement devastated her mother, causing her to take down pictures and give away Berry's computer. However, Miller continued to search for Berry before dying from heart failure in 2006. So, she died before she actually knew that her daughter was actually not dead. Later that year, on Christmas, on December 25th, 2006, Berry gave birth to a daughter. DNA evidence has confirmed that Castro was the father of the child. Robert Wolford was a prison inmate who had lived in Tremont, and he claimed in July of 2012 that he had information about the location of Berry's body. He led police to an empty lot on Cleveland's west side where they conducted a fruitless search. I don't really know what that means. Fruitless, maybe like an extent search, I think. He was sentenced in January 2013 to 4.5 years in prison for obstruction of justice, making a false report, and making a false alarm. Now, the third victim in the case, well, besides of the kid, obviously, besides of the daughter that actually got born by besides Berry's child. The next victim, Georgina Lynn DeJesus, born February 13th, 1990, and still alive, went missing on April 2nd, 2004, at the tender age of 14, only a child, only a teenager. So was Amanda Berry, 17. She was last seen at a payphone around 3 p.m. while on the way home from her middle school at West 105th Street and Lorraine Avenue, which I think they actually went to the same school, I think. At the time, she was friends with Castro's daughter, Arlene. Shortly before Gina disappeared, she and Arlene had called Arlene's mother, Grimelda Figueroa, for permission to have a sleepover at DeJesus' house. But Figueroa replied that they could not, and the two girls parted ways. Arlene was the last person to see DeJesus before her disappearance. DeJesus was under the impression that Castro was picking her up to drop her off at home, and she trusted Castro because she was friends with his teenage daughter. No one witnessed her abduction, and an Amber Alert was not issued, which angered her father, which I actually don't know that Amber Alerts were actually back in 2006. Actually, 2004, actually. He said in 2006, the Amber Alert should work for any missing child, whether it's an abduction or a runaway. A child needs to be found. We need to change this law. After a year after DeJesus' disappearance, the FBI released a composite sketch and description of a male suspect described as Latino, 25 to 35 years of age, 5 feet 10 inches, or for your un-Americans out there, 1.78 meters, 165 to 185 pounds, again in kilometers, kgs, 75 to 84 kgs, with green eyes, a goatee, and possibly a pencil-thin beard. According to count records, Castro was 5 feet 7 inches and weighed 179 pounds, with brown eyes and a goatee. DeJesus was featured in the America's Most Wanted segment, which linked her to Barry. The disappearance received regular media attention in 2012, while the families held public vigils because they thought that they died, which they would actually find out. Whoever was still alive 11 years later, they would actually find out that they were still alive. Castro attended at least 2 of these vigils, reportedly participated in a search party, and tried to get close to the DeJesus' family. Castro's son, Anthony, was a journalism student in 2004, and he interviewed DeJesus' mother for an article about the disappearance in the Plain Press newspaper, which I don't think Arlene, which was DeJesus, Castro's daughter, or son, knew that this was happening. I mean, I don't even think that Grimelda knew this was happening, because if she did, she would probably report to the police, and they would probably get out sooner. Police kept the investigation open and offered a $25,000 reward for information. According to Castro's uncle, his family knew that the Jesus family and his family knew the DeJesus family and had lived in the same neighborhood. Castro falsely claimed that he was not aware that DeJesus was a member of that family when he abducted her. Captivity. I guess we just went over this, but I guess... wait, now we actually tell what happens. So if you guys do not want to hear about abuse or whatever, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, I'd say click off at this point. Upon kidnapping Michelle Knight, Castro took her to the upper floor of his house, tied her hands and feet together, and pulled her up using his hands, feet, and neck. He left her there for 3 days without food. Prosecutors at Castro's sentencing wrote that diaries kept by his victims speak of forced sexual conduct, being locked in a dark room anticipating the next session of abuse, dreams of someday escaping and being reunited with family, being chained to a wall, being held like a prisoner of war, missing the lives they once enjoyed, emotional abuse, Castro's threats to kill them, being treated like an animal, continuous abuse, and desiring freedom. The women were kept in locked bedrooms where they were forced to use plastic toilets that were emptied frequently. They were fed one meal a day and allowed to shower twice a week at most. Knight told police that Castro had impregnated her at least 5 times. Wow. Wait, who was this one? Oh, wow, Michelle Knight. Wow. Wow, she actually also had a child, but by him, but her at least 5 times, and had induced miscarriages each time through beatings, hitting her with dumbbells, punching her, and slamming her against walls. He also starved her, which means that he was also starving her child in her stomach, and that's why she didn't. That's why her child all the time didn't survive. Knight's grandmother told reporters that she would require facial reconstruction surgery due to the beatings that she endured and had lost hearing in one ear. At one point, Knight had a pet dog. Oh, I didn't know this part. If you guys do not want to hear about this, I would say skip for like 5 seconds. But at one point, Knight had a pet dog while in captivity, but Castro killed it by snapping its neck after it bit him while trying to protect Knight. De Jesus told law enforcement that she was raped but did not believe that she was ever impregnated. On Christmas Day, 2006, Castro allegedly ordered Knight to assist in the birth of Barry's child, which took place in a small inflatable swimming pool, and threatened to kill her if her baby did not survive. At one point, the baby stopped breathing, but Knight was able to resuscitate her. Castro occasionally took Barry's daughter out of the house, including to visit his mother. She called him Daddy. And Castro's grandmother. In 2013, he showed one of his adult daughters a picture of the child and said that she was his girlfriend's daughter from a previous relationship. He had told others that she was his granddaughter. Barry taught her daughter how to read and write. According to the statement from CDP, officers visited Castro's home only once following the kidnappings. So once in 11 years or 12 years. Actually, 11 years, I think, for her. Only once following the kidnappings to discuss an unrelated... Hold on. CDP officers visited Castro's home only once following the kidnappings to discuss an unrelated incident. Castro did not appear to be home at the time and was later interviewed elsewhere. Neighbors have said that they called the police about suspicious activity observed at the home, but police claim that they have no record of any such calls. Castro's son, Anthony, reported that there were certain areas of the house that were locked and inaccessible. He also mentioned an occasion 3 weeks before the women's escape, when Castro asked him if Barry would ever be found. Anthony said that he told Castro that Barry was likely dead, to which Castro responded to, "Really? You think so?" NBC affiliated WKYC, which I know what that means, reported that Castro recalled each of the 3 abductions in great detail during his interrogation and indicated that they were unplanned crimes of opportunity, according to the WKYC's sources. Castro did not have an exit plan and believed that he would eventually be caught. He referred to himself as cold-blooded and a sex addict. Police found a suicide note in the house in which he discussed the abductions and wrote that his money and possessions should be given to the kidnapped women if they were caught. Now, escape and rescue. On the morning of May 6, 2013, Barry was finally able to make contact with Castro's neighbor, leading to her escape with her 6-year-old daughter. 6-year-old daughter, and the rescue of DeJesus and Knight by authorities, which led to that. According to police, Castro had left the house that day, and Barry realized that he had failed to lock the big inside door. Although the exterior storm door was bolted, she did not attempt to break through the outer door because she thought that Castro was testing her. According to the police reports, previously Castro had tested the women by leaving the house partially unlocked and exits unsecured. If they attempted to escape, he'd beat them. Instead, Barry screamed for help when she saw neighbors through the screen. Neighbor Angel Cordero responded to the screaming, but he was unable to communicate with Barry because she spoke little English. Neighbor Charles Ramsey joined Cordero at the house's front door during the rescue. They kicked a hole through the bottom of the storm door, and Barry crawled through, carrying her daughter. Ramsey said that Barry told him that she and her child were being kept inside the house against her will. Upon being freed, she went to the house of another Spanish-speaking neighbor, Wintel Tejeda, and with Ramsey's assistance called 911 saying, "Help me, I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years and I'm here. I'm free now." Responding to police officers Anthony Espada, Michael Tracy, and Barbara Johnson entered Castro's house. They walked through an upstairs hallway with guns drawn, announcing themselves as CPD. I think Cleveland Police Department, I think. After peeking out from a slightly open bedroom door, Knight entered the hallway and leaped into an officer's arms, repeatedly saying, "You saved me." Soon afterward, DeJesus entered the hallway from another room. Knight and DeJesus walked out of the house, and all 3 women plus a child were taken to Metro Health Medical Center. Barry and DeJesus were released from the hospital the next day, and Knight was discharged 4 days later on May 10th. Now, one of the victims, this is when I say that the hint was of this case was that he said in an interview, which was very famous, my mom even remembers this case happening in the news, and we live in Long Island, which that's gotta be some kind of big news if that's the case. Well, he got interviewed and he said, "Well, you know what happens? Well, something's wrong when a pretty little white girl walks into the arms of a black man," meaning him. And he even wrote a song about it I forgot what the song was called or whatever. I forgot the guy's name. But in his song, he claims that he was literally in his house eating ribs together, as dinner, and never suspected a thing of Ariel Castro. He always thought that he was a nice, gentle person, which that could not be farther from the case. Alright, so now, arrest and legal proceedings. Screenshot showing Castro's interrogation by the FBI. Castro was arrested in a McDonald's parking lot shortly after the victims were rescued. He was charged with 4 counts of kidnapping and 3 counts of rape on May 8th, which carry prison sentences up to 10 years to life in Ohio. 2 of Castro's brothers, Pedro and O'Neill, O-N-I-L, were also initially taken into custody, but were released on May 9th after police announced that they had no involvement of the kidnappings. See, so the only ones that knew were Castro and the kidnappers. And the kidnappees. Well, the people that got kidnapped. The charges against the two brothers were dropped. Castro made his first court appeal at the Cleveland Municipal Court on May 9th, where bail was set at $2 million per kidnapping charge, adding to a total of $8 million, which I guess if he had the $8 million, I would think that he would probably be freed, but yeah, no, he obviously didn't have that kind of money. Prosecutors intended to seek the death penalty against Castro. Additional charges were reported to be pending, including aggravated murder for intentional induction of miscarriages, attempted murder, assault, a charge for each instance of rape, and a kidnapping charge for each day each captive was held. And a kidnapping charge. Oh, yeah, I said that one, for each day that the captives were held. On May 14th, Castro's attorneys said that he would plead not guilty, even though they literally found him guilty, to all charges if indicted for kidnapping and rape. A Cuyahoga, so Cuyahoga, so that was from before, County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment against Castro on June 7th. It contained 329 counts, including 2 counts of aggravated murder, which he did not actually murder, but attempted, I would think, because remember that he attempted murdering Barry if the child didn't survive. Remember that in the swimming pool? Well, but it contained 329 counts, including 2 counts of aggravated murder under different sections of the Ohio Criminal Code for his role in the termination of one of the women's pregnancies. So basically, he did kill. Which means he actually technically is a serial killer, because you have to be a serial killer you have to have 5 kills to be considered a serial killer. And even though they were never born, they were still unborn, and they were in Michelle's night stomach. All 5 of them she miscarried on all 5 of them. So literally, he technically is a serial killer. Code for murdered under the code for his role in the termination of one of the pregnancies. The indictments covered only the period from August 2002 to February 2007, which that was enough to literally get him for life without parole for 1,000 years, but it didn't even matter because he actually just hung himself a month later. The county prosecutor, Timothy J. McGinty, stated that the investigation was ongoing and that any further findings would be presented to the grand jury. McGinty said that pursuing a death penalty specification would be considered following completion of indictment proceedings. After entering a non-guilty plea for Castro on June 12th, one of his attorneys, Craig Weintraub, said that although some of the charges against Castro were indisputable, it's our hope that we can continue to work toward a resolution to avoid having another unnecessary trial about aggravated murder and death penalty. He noted, "We are very sensitive to the emotional strain and impact that a trial would have on the women, their families, and this community. Castro was found competent to stand trial on July 3rd. On July 12th at Cuyahoga County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment for the remainder of the period after February of 2007. It brought the total to 977 counts. Now this is true. 977 counts, 512 counts of kidnapping, 446 of rape, 7 of gross sexual imposition, 6 of felonious assault, 3 of a child endangerment, which is actually should be... Oh, well, actually, yeah, it is 3 because the first one was 21. Michelle Knight was 21. The rest of them was 14 and 17, and then the kid that she impregnated. Felonious assault, 6 of felonious assault, 3 of child endangerment, 2 of aggravated murder, and 1 of a partridge in a pear tree. No, and 1 of possession of criminal tools, which would probably be the gun. I could think a gun or a knife or something. I don't know. I probably said it already. On July 17th, Castro pleaded not guilty still, after all this, to the expanded indictment. He faced death by lethal injection if convicted on all of the charges. Castro finally pleaded guilty on July 26th to 937 of the 977 charges against him, including charges of kidnapping, rape, and aggravated murder as part of a plea bargain, which called for consecutive sentences of life in prison plus 1,000 years, all without parole, which obviously he's already dead, so... Under the plea deal, Castro forfeited his right to appeal and could not profit in any way due to his crimes. He also forfeited his assets, including his Seymour Avenue house, which prosecutors said would be demolished, and it was demolished. Castro was told by Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court Judge Michael Russo, "You will not be getting out. Is that clear?" To which Castro responded, I do understand that, Your Honor." Castro also made comments about his addiction to pornography and sexual problem, but was cut off by Judge Russo, who said such issues could be discussed at the August 1st sentencing hearing. A law firm representing Berries, DeJesus, and Knights released a statement that the 3 women were relieved by today's plea. They are satisfied by the resolution into the case, and they are looking forward to having these legal proceedings drawn to a final close in the near future. At the sentencing hearing on August 1st, Castro was sentenced to consecutive life terms in prison plus 1,000 years, all without any possibility of parole. He was also fined $100,000, which I don't think he had the money, so that's why he hung himself. The court forfeited all of his property and assets to the Cuyahoga County government. I don't know why I say an N in it. Cuyahoga doesn't even have an N in it. It's Cuyahoga. It's Cuyahoga County government. Before his sentencing, Castro addressed the court for nearly 20 minutes, in which he said he was a good person. Yeah, and not a monster. But that he was addicted to sex and pornography and had practiced the art of masturbation from a young age. He claimed that he had never beaten or tortured the women and insisted that most of the sex he had with them was consensual. Yeah, a 14-year-old, a 17-year-old. He shifted between apologizing and blaming the FBI for failing to catch him, and was blaming his victims themselves for getting in the car with a stranger, along with insisting the court when he had sex with them, he discovered they were not virgins. I just hope that he did not lay a hand on Amanda's child. I think it was also a girl, I thought. I mean, there was also a boy, I thought, too. But maybe that's the case I'm doing next week. I don't know. He would alternately shift back into his apologetic comments, saying, "I hope they can find it in their hearts to forgive me, because we had a lot of harmony going on in that home." Yeah, nah, you're screwed, man. The sentencing judge also heard from Knight and family members of Barry and DeJesus. Knight told Castro, "You took 11 years of my life away. I spent 11 years in hell. Now your hell is just beginning. I will overcome all that has happened, but you will face hell for eternity. I will live on. You will die a little every day as you think of the 11 years of atrocities that you inflicted on us. I can forgive you, but I will never forget." And he is going to be in hell for the rest of his life. She is right, because he is not making it to heaven. Never in a million years. Never even 1,000 years. Remember 1,000 years parole, right? Yeah, he's with the devil and Hitler and all bad people. Now they're survivors. Knight, Barry, and DeJesus released a video statement on July 9th, 2013, thanking the public for their support. An attorney for Barry and DeJesus said that the women still have a strong desire for privacy and did not wish to speak to the media about their ordeal. The Cleveland Courage Fund is a bank account set up to help the women in their transition to the independent life, which had collected approximately $1.5 million at the time of their video's release, which that was only a couple months. Before Barry's disappearance, her grandfather had promised to give her a classic Chevrolet Monte Carlo, built in the year when she was born. He kept the car after her kidnapping in case if she was still found alive, which she was. He still had it for her when she was released, although it was in need for restoration from having been unused. I just think that it's the point where I actually might get the waterworks. I just think that I don't really think that I don't really think. I mean, if he promised her and then went back on it, right? For the Monte Carlo, right? For the car, if he went back on his promise, I don't think she would care, because all she is happy, all she is more focused on is just happy she's out of incarceration of her kidnapper, that he thought that she died for the 11 years. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying, but you probably do. All she probably cares about is that she's reunited with her family, and it feels so good. No, but still. But yeah. Yeah. So if he went back on his promise, I don't think she would care, because all she cares about is spending time with her family, probably, after she got out of the living hell. I'm literally crying. News. Several automotive shops offered to perform the restoration for free, which, after knowing that case, I would too if I was a mechanic working on that car. Knight discussed some of her ordeals in an interview with People magazine 1 year after her release, as well as her life leading up to the abduction. Since her rescue, she legally changed her name, which we obviously don't know, and began to get several tattoos as her way of coping with healing process. She also revealed that her son, it was her son that she got impregnated by the evil man of Castro. But she also revealed that her son was adopted by his foster parents while she was in captivity, and that she wanted to see him but does not want to bring him into the ordeal which she has had to deal with, and planned to see him after he becomes an adult, which that would probably make anyone get the waterworks. She would probably tell her son, right? She would probably tell her son what happened, and who his father was, after he's old enough and becomes a man. And I think anyone would respect and anyone would understand that she had to give her son up for adoption. Because she did not want to give him the life she wanted to give him a much better life that she had to endure. She planned to open a restaurant and dreamed of getting married, which she did in 2016, and hopes to adopt children, as her years of abuse and torture have made it unlikely for her to ever be able to give birth again. She also planned to reunite with Barry and DeJesus in the future, but began focusing on getting her own life back on track before then. Barry and DeJesus received honorary diplomas from John Marshall High School in 2015. In an interview with WKYC, DeJesus says that she was volunteering for the Amber Alert Committee, offering comfort to families of abducted children. She remains in touch with Barry and her family. In February 2017, Barry joined the staff of Fox affiliate WJW in Cleveland, where she hosts short recurring segments in which she reports missing person cases in order to help families reunite with missing family members. In April 2019, Barry reunited with Charles Ramsey, 6 years since her rescue, at an interview that was broadcasted on WJW. Now, don't get me wrong, when I actually talk about rape cases and kidnapping cases, right? Even though that they're actually found alive, like the 3 girls, right? They were found alive, but sometimes just like the stuff that they did, and just like the theory of their loved ones thinking that they were dead. I mean, they even held vigils for them. And then years later found them to be alive. That has to hit hard, because now obviously the murder victims, right? Obviously anyone would feel sorry for them. But I just feel like the kidnap cases, right? Not knowing that your child is not dead, I feel like that has to, because see, this is the actual only video that I've done before that I'm literally, I mean, that tears literally came out of my eyes. So, house demolition. The former site of Castro's home on 2207 Seymour Avenue in June 2014, 10 months after the demolition. As part of the plea bargain, the house where Castro had lived and held the woman captive was demolished on August 7th, 2013. Knight was present and handed out yellow balloons to spectators, which she said represented missing children. The balloons were released before DeJesus's aunt began the demolition with one swing of a crane. The house has been completely blurred out on the street view of Google Maps. Castro's death, which we basically already know. Well, we just know that he got hung. Which he hung himself. Castro was found hanging from a bedsheet in his detention cell at the Correctional Reception Center in Orient, Ohio, on the evening of September 3rd, 2013, 1 month into his life sentence. He was 53 at the time of his death. Prison staff performed CPR on him before he was taken into the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center in Columbus, where he was pronounced dead shortly after. The following day, Franklin County Colonel Jan Gorniak announced that a preliminary autopsy had found the cause of Castro's death to be suicide by hanging. He was later cremated. On October 10th, 2013, the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction released a report which suggested that Castro may have died accidentally from autoerotic asphyxiation rather than suicide. Yeah, like they didn't see him hanging. Gorniak rejected the possibility, standing by her ruling of suicide. The report also said that 2 prison guards had falsified logs documenting their observation of Castro's hours before he was found dead. He was not on suicide watch. And remember, he even at the time of his death, but had been subjected to routine checks every 30 minutes due to his notoriety. Now remember, I think he did actually hang himself, because if you remember correctly, I forgot when this was, but he posted suicide notes back earlier in this video. A consultant's report was released on December 3rd and officially concluded that all available evidence pointed to suicide, including a shrine-like arrangement of family pictures and a Bible in Castro's cell, an increasing tone of frustration in his prison journal, and the reality of spending the rest of his life in prison while subject to constant harassment. The Ohio State Highway Patrol also reviewed the case and reached the same conclusion. Now, last but not least, Castro's family. Some of Castro's family members disowned him and denounced his actions and apologized to the victims and their families, which, if he was still alive, I would say get rid of his ass. Never see him in prison, never meet him, never, even if he had the luxury of getting visits, never visit him. The amount of pain that the amount of pain and suffering that the 3 girls endured, he should feel that way in prison. But no, instead of being stabbed or killed by another inmate, he killed himself, literally 1 month after. In January 2014, Castro's nephew, Jeremy J. Alicia, was arrested for and charged with 22 counts of related to child pornography, including 21 counts of pandering sexually oriented matter involving a minor, and 1 count of possessing a criminal tool, which, if you remember correctly, Castro, he said that he also had a porno addiction, and there were also 1 count of possessing a criminal tool. Now, before we end this video, the hint that I have for next week is another rape case, which they were found to still be alive. But I actually have looked up this guy, who's a guy. He's actually a guy. Okay, that's another hint. He's Russian or Germany, and he literally locked his own daughter in his basement, in basically like a dungeon, for 24 years. No daylight, no sunlight, no nothing. Raped her on a daily basis, impregnated her, I think with like 7 kids. So if you guys know who I'm talking about, I guess please comment if the comment section allows you to. And he even got, and this happened in I think the 80s. He actually got released just last year, and he's 89. And I'll catch you guys in my next video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and peace. No, stay good, everybody. Don't kill.